Hello and welcome back to another new edition of Windows and Current Affairs. And actually this episode is a very special one. It's an exclusive edition commemorating 9 years after June 30th revolution. Of course, as we all remember, Egyptians, 44 most of the Google Earth venues were taking those very, very precious shots of everywhere, every corner in Egypt, people flocking to the streets, Egyptian citizens, men, women, and elderly, everybody from all walks of life, going out to the streets to kick off the terrorist organization of the Brotherhood organization, and calling for back then the Minister of Defense, General Abdel Fattah Sisi, to take over. And we remember the helicopters, and we remember the Egyptian army guarding us, and we mandating the Egyptian army to take over and protect the country. And it was all history after that. Of course, lots of incidents have taken place. It was a glorious time, very, very beautiful memories, very precious ones, and each Egyptian have his own piece of history and memory when it comes to that very special day. After that, things that followed became history, and now we have set the foundation for the new republic with all the achievements, 7 full years of glorious achievements, according to directives of a great man, a savior, and a president, and a father to all Egyptians, President Abdel Fattah Sisi, ever since he came into office. And in his tenure, Egypt became flourishing and taking its leading role once again, and attaining important positions, and attaining the chairmanship of the African Union, and soft diplomacy here and there, and many, many things. We're going to be discussing it in this edition of Windows and Current Affairs, and we're very delighted to be having with us Mohamed Taha Abdel Kaber, and he is a researcher of Egyptian African Studies. Good evening, Mohamed. How are you?
Good evening to you, and the amazing call.
So, remembering that very special day, a glorious day for all Egyptians, and we have too many memories to remember, but on top of them, it is a start of a new history and a foundation for the new republic, with all its good memories, but under the guidance and the protection of the Egyptian army, mandating back then the Ministry of Defense, General Abdel Fattah Sisi, and the people in the streets, chanting slogans for the Egyptian army and for Egypt and for freedom, and also holding the flags. What does that special day signify for you?
First of all, we need to send our prayers to our heroes from armed forces and policemen who passed away to save this country from the terrorist groups who kidnapped our country for 1 year, one black year, over all Egyptians. May their souls rest in peace. And we owe those heroes our lives and our development, what we have achieved till now, on all aspects and in all sectors, because of their courage and braveness. Then let me congratulate and celebrate with our people with this splendid memory. It's the 7th or 8th memory, if my memory, if I can remember, since 2013. And since then, we have passed with
so many incidents,
a lot of challenges. And yes.
But let's take it from the start and talk about the guardianship of the Egyptian army, our glorious members and officials from the Egyptian army who took this very, very dangerous challenge back then at that time. It was very dangerous to guard a whole nation that wanted to get rid of a very dangerous group of outlaws and terrorist organization who wanted to rule Egypt with blood and tears. But they stood up bravely, courageously, and took the guardianship of Egypt and stood up to the challenge and listened to our mandation and saved Egyptians from that very, very black tunnel and set the foundation for the new republic. If you like to elaborate.
I think that's not strange from our armed forces since 7,000 years back then. The Egyptian army stood instead of our people.
That's true.
To face invasions and greediness from other nations along the history, and they are there. That's their mission, to listen to our Egyptian people calls for protection every now and then along the history, and especially in this period, they tried so long to handle the scene or the events slowly and peacefully, but those radical groups never listened for Egyptian people calls until the people fully crowded the streets, calling their armed forces, the sincere men of our armed forces, and Mr. President Abdel Fattah Sisi, he was then the Minister of Defense, and he bravely called this calls and this mission, and stood tall along with our national entities like Al Azhar and Church and Constitutional Court, and the announcement, the historical announcement of July 3rd that came like an ice on the Egyptian people's hearts. That means a lot, and we owe them our lives, like I said before.
That's true. We're going to be talking about taking different steps of empowering youth and building the new republic and the infrastructural projects and the boom that was taken in our foreign policy by President Abdel Fattah Sisi in particular, how Egypt retained its leading role and the soft power that was taken and the economic reform program, lots and lots of achievements. But let us talk at a phase that is prior to all that, which was a difficulty immediately after all Egyptians mandated the Egyptian army and mandated back then General Abdel Fattah Sisi, Minister of Defense, and stretched their hands for him to come and help the Egyptian people and save them from the dark tunnel they were going through and all that. And the accusations by media outlets with the political interests that were directed towards Egypt. Faking news that this is a coup, a military coup, which was not true at all, and was later then corrected. But that particular time, we tried to explain it was not a military coup, and the scenes all over Egypt, and the people going out to the streets and holding Egyptian flags. It was not a military coup, but they called for imposing sanctions over Egypt and banning Egypt from different international communities. Justifying that this is a military coup. Talk to us about that particular stage.
I think that Mr. President Abdel Fattah Sisi had back then had, and he also still has, this iron will. He believed that Egyptian people listens to him, and they will support him as they called him to take this mission to lead our country from out of this tunnel, like you've mentioned. And after year from back then on 2013, after this in 2015, he stood tall. He stood in front of all the nations in climate conference in the UN, and that was Egypt was talking. I remember the historical announcement and speeches from President Sadat in the same place, and then Mr. President Abdel Fattah Sisi, who led the world towards climate change, which Egypt, after 7 years from this date, will hold and host this conference, COP27, in Sharm el-Sheikh, the upcoming November. If we listen back then to the rumors and the fake news, we won't arrive to this moment. Celebrating Egypt hosts such a big event like COP and leading the world in this event.
And also, according to claims by media outlets, by fake media outlets who were accusing Egypt of effecting a military coup and all that, the early elections and the referendum and you know, several political steps were taken that were proving to the whole world that this is not a military coup, that we were holding early elections, and there was a civil you know, president who was nominated also against back then General Sisi and other nominates, and also announcing or assigning the back then another president to take over during the political transitional period. You know, we're talking about, we're remembering history. That was not a military coup. If it was a military coup, it was a completely different scenario would have been taken. Anyway, but after we have went through all these difficulties and proven to the whole world that this is our desire and this is our aim, and that is our ambition to choose our own government and to choose our own president according to our choices, to our freedom, and not to be imposed or enforced to choose a different, a specific organization by force. We did it. And we nominated and we elected President Abdel Fattah Sisi, and this became history. And we started off with our achievements. If you like to elaborate over that, the start of this period.
Yes, it's not a secret that some global groups and media associations have their agendas, and they dreamt of the falling of Arab countries, especially Egypt, in the what's called Arab Spring, which I don't like this calling. That Egypt was the only country to stand against this invasion from and interfering from foreign nations who have goals and to in the positioning radical groups in order to give them directions how to lead and what to deal, what to make. And this dream came a nightmare for them after June 30th from the iron will of Egyptian people who managed to uncover those agendas and those the playing, the not clear playing of those global powers. So that was heavy on them. But anyone back then have eyes and ears. He can open whatever screen and see people falling and crowding the streets, yelling and calling long live Egypt, and calls for armed forces to handle the country and the scene, and especially Mr. President Abdel Fattah Sisi. And the results of the elections after that, it's almost 100% conquer from for Mr. President Abdel Fattah Sisi. I think 97 or 98, and you can't fake this will of and these results of honest Egyptian people opinions. You can't you can't talk instead of them. They announced they will in the elections and before that in the streets. And we have videos and we have all the documentaries back then, anyone can see right now. But as long we succeeded in our mission, along all these tough years, the 8 years of challenging and rumors and fake news and war. It's maybe it's not military, but it was a war, and we conquered all our enemies in this war.
Exactly. We need also to remember, take a flashback also, and remember how wars were waged against Egypt back then after we elected President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi as our president, according to our own will and freedom. And you know, the different missions of terrorism that were waged against different institutions in Egypt, and that martyrs fell from our security personnel here and there, and you know, targeting schools and targeting public services and targeting innocent armless civilians and personnel and people here and there in Egypt in order to destabilize the security of Egypt. But our government and our security forces stood courageously to defeat those militants. Talk to us about that particular, and how we defeated terrorism, so that the next phase, we were chosen by the United Nations to head a committee of you know, conquering terrorism, to be as a role example for other countries, to talk about defeating terrorism and conquering terrorism.
I remember back then I was honored to be a member of an attendee of or a participant at the World Youth Forum 2017, the first edition. And I remember the words of Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi back then, when he added one human rights to the UN human rights document, and he said the right to defeat terrorism or facing terrorism for people. We don't need any imperial power to force its will on us, faking that they are conquering for or fighting for freedom or something else, while we are fighting for our people and our land in Sinai and all over Egypt. We saw the churches and the mosques. The Rauda mosque in Sinai, they don't have a religion, they don't have any ethics. They have only beneficial dreams, and they saw or dreamt of Egypt as the golden cow, and they needed to rule it and to be the
by an iron fist.
Yes, but they couldn't imagine that Egyptian people will have all this awareness and are aware of how precious their land is, and they uncovered these conspiracy. There were a big conspiracy from different players and around the world, that they thought that Egyptian people are decent and will never uncover those conspiracy, but Egyptian people, apart from this, taught them a lesson. They taught them a lesson back then, and this day I think it's a nightmare for them to just mention June the 30th, when Egyptian people and armed forces and policemen and our judges, like Hisham Barakat, the councillor Hisham Barakat, who passed away, defending against them in courts legally, not by force like them.
Right. We're going to go to a short break, and we'll come to continue this episode of Windows on Current Affairs and commemorating 9 years of June 30th. So stay with us. Welcome back, and remembering June 30th, 9 years after this glorious day, and we're very delighted having with us here live in the studio Mohamed Abdul Gaber, and he's a researcher of African-Egyptian relations and research and studies also. Let's move to another phase, which is establishing the National Academy for Training, National Academy for Youth. It's another glorious step, very important.
Yes, that was a very vital aspect to work on, like giving Egyptian youth, an opportunity and making a second line who can stand and take the mission for this country in different fields. And they proved that we have abilities and we have faith in our youth. Back then in 2016, which Mr. President Abdel Fattah Sisi assigned it as the youth year, it was not only words, but he responded to the dream of Egyptian youth of presidential leadership program to hold or to host a global event which came through the year after, which is World Youth Forum, and the global gathering event, which have a direct effect on the mentality and the perspective, how people or how other youth from different nationalities see Egypt. They listened a lot of rumors and fake news, and they thought that we still riding camels. But when they came here and visited Sharm el-Sheikh and saw the Egyptian youth talking and leading the events, they saw how great our people are, and the National Training Academy was a dream came true, not only for Egyptian people, but we saw different programs for African and Arab youth from different nationalities who are there, who are now leaders in their countries. I know personally some of them in Chad or Nigeria and different countries who are leaders and ministers and ministers' assistants who learned in Egypt. Such a big entity with a big mission. We pray for them and God bless this place to complete this mission on all aspects.
Right. Of course, ever since President Abdel Fattah Sisi have stepped into office, he has been setting different goals and programs as priorities. Different files were open. For almost 30 years, they weren't taken as a priority, like the gender equality. I mean, equality between men and women. So he eliminated the quota inside the parliament. And also the discrimination between different sectors of society, empowering youth, empowering women, alleviating their status. Different files like educational file, like the security file, like the health file, the infrastructural projects. He even have a very, very popular quotes that every Egyptian know very well. Like, for example, his quotes, different quotes about reforming the religious discourse. He cared very much about correcting the religious discourse and excluding all the misconceptions in that particular file that reflects or sends negative vibes or wrong image about Islam. He gave a statement about regarding himself as a minister for women. He also gave statements about civil society and the respect for freedoms and freedom of speech. And he talked about the freedom of the press and for media also. He talked about empowering youth and how important is it. He talked about the importance of digitalization and taking Egypt to a whole new level, preparing for a new republic and a new totally different nation that could be ready for modernization and for advancement and for a totally new, age of Renaissance. And he effected the new republic.
Those quotes are too many to just mention in one episode, and I'm sure you don't have time for this. But my favorite is that reflects Egypt stable foreign policy ethics, which is
exactly. I forgot about foreign policy and soft diplomacy.
We are dealing with honor and integrity, while others are not dealing with integrity. That's my favorite quote for which reflects our stable ethics and principles in foreign policy and dealing with people. We are not invaders. We are not interfering in any country who has challenges, even African or Arab. And we never dreamt to invade or interfere in any country. But in the contraction of this, we are helping our brothers and sisters in Libya or Syria or Sudan or everywhere, and we are ready all the time to give a hand for who we need. And even the refugees, we are not calling them refugees, and Mr. President mentioned that, and we give them an equal opportunity to invest and to work in Egypt, same as like Egyptians. And in the aspect, the very vital, forgotten for decades aspect, which is people with special abilities. I don't say it's needs, it's abilities. They have special abilities. And the inclusion, the human rights, the real human rights, not the fake group.
Exactly.
That, yes, and the inclusion Egypt made on this aspect, and on the facilities of the street, the buses, the education,
and
the
integrating them in society.
Yes, the education and even in Ministry of Education, they made inclusion decisions to include some of them in normal schools, giving them opportunity even on sport. And Dr. Ashraf Sobhi is one of the playmakers in this file, and we give them and they give back gold medals and victories in every sport, every type of sport. Egyptian people have the potential to be leaders and to lead this world, but they didn't have the opportunity before. But until Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, our gift from heaven to this, and if we are lucky to have him leading our country, I think women are the luckiest.
That's true.
Yes.
Women and children.
Yes.
Not only women.
Even in places women never dreamt to be leading, such as courts and parliament and even ministers. We have 6 or 7 ministers.
7. So also you talked about a very important file which could overweigh all the other elements, because it has outbalanced, it had brought the power balance to Egypt's court again, which is the foreign policy. We have a president who is an expert of foreign policy. He came with an excellent file for an open venue for foreign policy, and he succeeded in it. He would be registered in history with the privilege of soft power.
Yes.
He is a man of soft power.
Yes.
And he has his own ideas, his own initiatives and all that. And he has presided over with very innovative ideas and innovative initiatives that nobody have ever thought of. Talk to us about our president when it comes to soft power.
I think he gave us the clue how he is succeeding in leading such a file and different files, because he told them that, he told us that that he was studying Egyptian problems and Egyptian challenges since he was a young man, and he wrote down his dreams in every file. And he was praying, and if he has the power to change all these problems and facing those challenges in the favor of our people, our decent people. And I think if we cannot find any file to support Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on, or to thank him on it, I think Haya Karima, or decent life for Egyptian people in rural places and poor villages, is the main and the master scene that we have along all this splendid journey. And like you've mentioned, he has magic powers on the aspect of the foreign policy. But I think before foreign policy, it came the hard power, which is our military power, and the decision to diversify the sources of arming and on the marine and air forces. We have the power to talk and deal with different powers and different countries who have the expertise and the advanced technology in this field. Not only one country like we did 4 decades before. That gave us the power to maintain our and to assure our stable principles and our foreign policy ethics, especially for our natural deepening, which is our natural expansion, which is Africa, which we were lucky to have the position of leadership on the African Union on 2019. And we are still till now after this year, and we are not even leading the African Union, but we are dealing with African issues and challenges such as like ours, especially in the climate change affections and the lack of funding for transformation to green economy in these countries. And we are telling world leaders to give hands for African countries and to support them in this file, which affects all the poor people of Africa. And as well in the economic aspect and the investment, as we succeeded in our foreign policy challenges, that came along with succession in as well the investment file. We see the Suez Canal economic zone and its splendid work and the investments from all over the world. And as well in the new capital, we saw the investments and people back then, evil people like Mr. President likes to call them, doubts this and were spreading rumors about the new capital and its
that's
unworthy
true. For a long
project.
time,
Yes,
exactly. For a long time, all the achievements, the glorious achievements by the president were skepticized by the wrong people and by people with some political interest. But it was all revealed that this was not true, and real achievements on the ground have shown that. But let us also talk about his attempts and the Egyptian administration's attempt to digitalize Egypt, starting of course with Port Said and gradually taking it over to other places. Digitalizing Egypt. Now you can go to any bank, you can do with the tip of your finger, you can transfer your account from here to that, and you can do all your governmental or anything facilities that you like to execute, you can take it over online. Talk to us about digitalizing. He promised that he's going to digitalize Egypt, and he did it.
That's the challenge of tomorrow's world. If we didn't cope and took the step towards this file and transforming Egypt and all its deals and activities into a digital world, we will need then billions of investments and funds to cope with and to catch up with the nations who started before us, and this giving us an opportunity to maintain a good service in all aspects, such like the national health program and all the service, legal or personal, banking, and even solidarity aids were transformed into digital. And the initiatives, the very good initiatives from the Ministry of Telecommunication to empower youth dealing with the advanced technology, such as FWD initiative and ITI, the Egyptian Institute for Technology, and all those, and I call all my friends and who never saw such events or participated in to take this step towards tomorrow's world's careers as well. All our normal or nowadays careers will change, and if you don't have the ability to deal with tomorrow's world's career, you will not find you won't find any career to have, and that need special abilities. And in this file, Mr. President is never satisfied with the results. He needs more, and especially in education, especially in universities. And the example he mentioned about the engineers who failed to succeed in the exam of technology, and he supported them and told them to come and take those opportunities from the free of charge initiatives, to have those abilities to make their country a developed country with their powers and their mentalities.
Right. On that note, Mr. Mohamed Abdul Gaber, you are a researcher, Egyptian African Studies. Would like to thank you so much. Wish you the best of luck. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, and for the amazing crew, and for our armed forces and policemen who are staying up late in order to have safety in this country.
Our real pleasure. And now we'll have to end it here. Many thanks to all of you who joined us, and until we see you again next week, that's a goodbye.